Hello and welcome. You're tuned into the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. Along with me, Tim Dennis. How are you, Tim?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Hey, we have a buddy of ours joining us. It's been a while, but he's back. Mike Ricksecker is here. As a matter of fact, I think the last time we spoke with Mike was last year about his book, A Walk in the Shadows, a complete guide to shadow people. The new edition, the updated version, is out and available. We have a link for it in today's program guide. You can also find it on Amazon.com, but we've got a link to make it easier for you. Mike Ricksecker is the author of A Walk in the Shadows, a complete guide to shadow people, the historic paranormal books Ghosts of Maryland, Ghosts and Legends of Oklahoma, Campfire Tales Midwest, Ghostorian, am I saying that right? Ghostorian Case Files.
You got it, yeah.
All right. And the Encounters with the Paranormal series. He's appeared on multiple television shows and programs as a paranormal historian, including Animal Planet's The Haunted, Travel Channel's The Alaska Triangle, Bio Channel's My Ghost Story, and more. He's back with us today. We're going to talk a little bit about the book, his new project that he's working on, the Shadow Dimension series. We'll discuss that. But Mike, we just came back from Mansfield, Ohio, the Ohio Reformatory there.
Yeah, Ohio State Reformatory there in Mansfield. That's an absolutely fantastic location. And the event that they put on there, Tri-C Ghost Hunters, they put on the Parapsychon. They're always a class act, and I really got to hand it to Greg and Kathy and his team, or their team, because they always do such a wonderful job with that event.
Yeah, it was such a good time. But I'm going to tell you something I haven't shared. The only person I talked to about this is Tim. So I came back, and I had been feeling very antsy, very anxiety-ridden. And as a matter of fact, I was having a lot of chest pains, afraid that I might even be having a heart attack. And when we were recording our True Crime Tuesday program the other day, I was a little out of it. We did our show, and we were supposed to record some more episodes, but I ended up telling Tim, I got to wrap it up, man. I just don't feel good. And I started explaining, it started once I got back from Mansfield. And I actually have, thanks to a listener, I've got some holy water from Rome. And as I was thinking about it, I opened up my desk drawer, I took out the holy water and poured it in my hands, kind of wiped it over my forehead, my back of my neck, and over my chest. And I did a little clearing prayer. And within an hour, most of the aches and pains were gone. I felt very fatigued, like something had been draining off me. But I wonder if I legitimately brought back a little friend, somebody that was sucking off the energy I'm putting out. Mike, I mean, that was a weird moment for me.
Yeah, and that building, the energy from that building can really do that to you. Now, you were down there in the cell block area, and I remember when we chatted for just a couple minutes there that you were saying that you were feeling a lot of different temperature changes down there that seemed rather unusual. So, yeah, some of that energy there could have certainly followed you back.
Yeah, it was, people always ask, do you get followed by spirits? And it's funny because I told people, stop worrying, you're not going to get followed by ghosts. And then here I got followed by a ghost or something attached to me. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was, I feel a lot better. So I'm thankful for that. I don't know if it was just full on anxiety or what, but using the holy water from Rome certainly helped me out on that. So I thought I'd share that with you since you were there with me. Have you ever, in all your travels and being in these haunted locations, have you ever felt like maybe something connected with you?
That's an interesting question that I get a lot. And, I can't say that anything's ever really followed me home, kind of like what you just had. But being at a location, feeling the energy there, right. You do feel that for sure when you get into some of these different locations, especially the ones that are a little bit more active. So it's, people want to know what that's like, but it's always one of those, be careful what you ask for.
Yeah, exactly. And here's why I think he didn't get followed home by a spirit, Tim. They had Mike up in the hot box at Mansfield Reformatory in the vendor room where, oh my God, you guys were like a little easy bake oven upstairs.
Yeah, we were. It was getting pretty toasty up there. Sometimes they'd have that back door open to let a little airflow through, but I don't know. For some reason, somebody would go and close it again, and then it'd just start roasting again. So I think we lost a couple pounds.
Yeah, well, I should have been up there then. I was in the cool collected area downstairs. We did some ghost hunting. We had some interesting aspects happen. And of course, I'm pleased to have gotten one EVP. It was a full on get out EVP while in prison. So you got to love when you know, the spirits. And maybe what I'll try to do is cue up that audio in a little bit. I'll play it for you. But one of the other weird moments I had, we were on the 3rd floor leading a ghost hunt. And none of the spirits seemed to be coming through. Although at one point, Mike, this was pretty intriguing. All of the walkie-talkies for all of the hosts, you know, the people that were walking us from location to station and such, all of them went off with a little girl's voice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it really kind of unnerved the cast and crew there of Mansfield. But that was a weird moment. But I finally figured, okay, well, we're not getting any spirits here that want to communicate. So I turned on the recorder and I said, is there anybody attached to one of us that would like to come forward? Is there somebody here you'd like to communicate with? And I played it. And then I asked again for clarification, and I played it back, and a name pops up. And then I ask again, and it's the same name. And I look around this group, and there's only 20 people. This is like our 4th group of people coming through. And I go, is there an Amber here? And there was a girl named Amber sitting 4 feet away from me. And she's like, yeah, I'm Amber. I'm like, well, somebody's looking for you, Amber. So that was kind of a weird moment in there. But then we had a lot of shadow movement, a lot of strange phenomena taking place. As a matter of fact, that's what led to the EVP that I captured. And I'll shut up for a second and give me your impressions of the shadow people there. And I'm gonna grab that audio and play it for you here.
Yeah, the shadow entities at the Ohio State Reformatory, you know, there's a lot of shadow play within that building. And, you know, you're trying to figure out exactly, you know, who or what that is. Are they some of the prisoners? Are they the warden's family? And I don't know if we've ever really been able to pinpoint exactly who or what those shadows are. But you know, there's so much that happens within that building, and it's such a wide variety. You know, a child's voice, not surprising. The warden's children were there. I've heard of, you know, mediums and psychics getting impressions of children in there, and then people don't expect that when they go to a prison. So, yeah, it just have such a vast variety of different types of spirits and entities within that building that you could investigate there for years and still not discover it at all.
Now, Mike, I do have, from my experience there, I do have one particular shadow experience that I was intrigued about, and that is, and I don't know if you've experienced it for yourself, but in the administration building, if you go up there's that one staircase that's got the picture window, the divided staircase. And I went in there with, I was at the bottom of the stairs with people who couldn't necessarily walk the staircase, and I was sitting with them. And they were telling us, if you sit at the bottom of the stairs, you can watch shadow people walk back and forth in front of that picture window, especially when the moon is coming through that picture window. And what I found particularly fascinating is especially if I don't know why this is, if you put your head down and you give it a second, they'll show up and they'll start walking back and forth. It's almost like ducks in a shooting gallery, but they'll walk back and forth. And when you say, and especially I find this intriguing that you say you don't know who the identity of who that may potentially be. I find the administration building particularly fascinating as to who that could be. Do you care to take a guess as to who that could be?
Yeah, if you're talking about the area I'm thinking of, that would be around the warden's area, his quarters, and where his family would have been. So
yeah,
you know, it could be any number of people from. I mean, there were a variety of different wardens that had lived there with their families. So yeah, it could be any number of them.
Yeah. It just
very weird. Yeah, the place is packed with activity and energy. But again, I mean, it has such a dark past and history, right? That you're going to, it seems like there's many different levels of things that go on there. Who it could be, that's got to be a tough call too, because there's, you know, are these spirits contained to one location, or are they transient? Are they able to move back and forth?
Yeah, and that's a great point too. You know, so you always have the potential that there could be some sort of transient spirit that comes in. Maybe they hang out for a while, stay for, you know, some period of time, and may not have anything to do with the building at all. But, you know, then again, you look at that building, and you know, you had criminals in there, you had guards. There were suicides. You know,
right.
some different deaths. The one guard that was murdered. So you have a lot of that kind of darker history in there. And then, like we were just talking about with the administrative building, you're talking family type energy. So it's such a wide variety that's in there.
Well, when I was doing the private ghost hunt and I was with a group of people, I put everybody in a cell. And I stood outside the cell. What was weird is at one point you hear this guy, he had an ovilus, Tim. And while he's in there, you hear no words coming out of it. And all of a sudden it goes, scratch, prison. Those are the only two words that came out, which is really bizarre, right? Because again, the ovilus has no GPS. It has no clue of where you are, and that it picks up on this in an area people have been scratched. And they're in the jail cell. So I decided I'm going to do a little spiritual archaeology. I'm going to kind of talk to the ghosts like I'm one of the guards. And so I did this first one, and you'll just hear me kind of announcing, all right, guys, time to, quiet down. It's bedtime, right? So here's that one, and then I'll play the follow-up.
Lights out, gentlemen. No talking, no horseplay. Time for bed. Apparently the rest of the building doesn't know we're ghost hunting, huh?
So while I was doing that, some people were talking down the way, but one of the guys standing next to me goes, Dave, when you said that, a shadow figure just ducked out of one of the cells and looked at us. So that led me to do the second EVP, and you're going to hear me say, hey, who's poking their head out of their cell? And we get a great classic guttural get out.
All right, who's poking their head out?
Could you hear it, Tim?
Good.
Yeah, I'll play it one more time. Let's see. Oh, let me get it to rewind up.
All right, who's poking their head out?
So something was not happy that we were there, especially trying to engage the spirits of the inmates that were there. But I'm excited to be going back. And Mike, I'd love to have you join us. I think we're going to be back out there in May of 2022 doing a Darkness Radio event. And we'll be talking more about this, but it'd be great to have you out there as a Darkness Radio participant and give you a chance to talk and meet and greet with the audience and sell your awesome books and kind of get people in front of you so they can see you and hear the stories that you have to share as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to. I do believe you're correct that it is May of next year. And, again, they always put on such a fantastic event there. So definitely looking forward to it.
Well, that's their event. I'm bringing Darkness Radio.
Oh, this is your own event.
Back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
For Memorial Day weekend, we're planning on bringing it back, bringing back our events in a full scale mode. So I'm looking forward to get back out there. But now let's talk. The book, of course, is called A Walk in the Shadows, A Complete Guide to Shadow People. The new edition is out and available. It's got a lot of new pages, new stories. You also have the new project, The Shadow Dimension. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about what the Shadow Dimension is?
Yeah, The Shadow Dimension, a brand new 6-part docu series that just came out here about a month ago, and it's on 3 different platforms. It's on Vimeo, Quasum, and Zuzu, which is a Canadian streaming platform. Just got the news yesterday that Tubi and Plex picked it up. So that's great. So it'll be available on more platforms. But basically, what this project is inspired by all the work that I did for A Walk in the Shadows. Is I wanted to do a docuseries on actually going to locations that have reported significant shadow activity and also have reported the potential of portals and vortex activity and what have you, and actually go to those locations and research and document and see if we could actually observe shadow activity there or try to discover what it is that's actually generating this activity. Now, a lot of this was filmed during COVID. I was all geared up last year to start this project, and then COVID hit, so it was kind of limited as far as what I could do. But I did get out to what's known as the Conjuring House, or the House on Round Top Farm out in Rhode Island. And the other location that we got to was Mineral Springs Hotel in Alton, Illinois. And it's I believe, at least, of course, that's a fantastic series as we dive into these different locations. Of course, we're investigating while we're there, but I bring in a lot of wonderful people, like Carl Johnson is involved, Andrea Perrin, your castmate from the Holzer Files, Alexandra, is involved as well. Yeah. So, I got all their, expertise and insight on this phenomenon as well. And I think people will be, I think they'll really enjoy the ride that they take as they, kind of learn my backstory, my interactions with shadow activity, learn about other people's experiences with shadows and shadow phenomena, and then actually going to these locations and investigating and researching this type of activity.
Well, give me your honest assessment of the Conjuring House. I've heard varied things, but I'm curious. I trust you. I like you. What is your take on that house? Is it as active as they say?
It is a really interesting house. There are times in which it's very quiet. It's very serene, and it doesn't seem like a thing is going on. But then all of a sudden, it seems like it just sneaks up on you. So, we're there at the house, and I'm talking with Carl. I had Keith Johnson out there as well. We're doing some little interviews, having conversations, and I'm doing a walkthrough with Keith and having him tell me about some of his experiences up there. And we're on the second floor, and he's telling me about this story that happened with the exterior window in the room that used to be Andrea's room. And as he's telling me the story, all of a sudden I got extremely lightheaded, and it was pretty much all I could do to kind of stay still, let him finish up the story. And once he was done, I handed him the camera and had to sit down and kind of catch my breath and collect myself. So it's, was I exhausted? Had it been a long day already, or did something happen to me? That's kind of the question. But it's right in the location where there's been so much reported activity that it does make you wonder if some of that supernatural energy that's there was affecting me at the moment. So I definitely want to go back. I caught a fantastic photo of what I would call interdimensional phasing, where you can kind of see some of that portal activity happening. And I absolutely want to follow up on it.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. I mean, of all the places you've gone to, where would you put this place on the scale of haunted? I mean, is this a top notch, or is it, middling kind of? Well, there's definitely activity there, but I don't know that it's off the charts.
Yeah, I would put it amongst my top 10. From some of from what happened with me there, from what I was able to capture in just a short period of time. We were only there for a few hours. And then some of the things I was picking up on in the basement. And I love the way that the basement of that place is constructed. To me, it's like a perfect little power plant. You have an open well with water. You have the limestone walls, and then the granite slabs that basically cap those limestone walls. And, from all the stories from over the years, and then what I was able to actually feel up there, and you have Carl's stories and Andrea's stories, and it's almost like a column of paranormal activity that starts in that basement and works its way straight up through the house.
At any point, I mean, did you feel malevolent forces or something darker there? Because, in Andrea's books and tellings, and even Roger Perrin's revisits to this, he seemed to think that it was a much more pleasant spirit, but that there was something more unnerving there.
Yeah, and I've read Andrea's books, and of course I've known her for a long, long time, and I've met and talked with Roger a number of times as well. In fact, last year, or I guess it would have been a year and a half ago at Michigan, he was my roommate, so that was kind of fun. Roger's a character. But he
well, you
really
must
is.
Had all the girls then, because I know they love Roger.
Oh, yes, they do. Yes, they do. He's a sly dog, that's for sure. Yeah, and it's a mix of stories. There, a lot of the accounts of some of these, spirits and entities that are there are, either, they're nice, or a lot of the stories are just rather benign. Like, something happened, they observed it, and or something may have observed them, and that was it. But then every once in a while, you kind of have this more malevolent story that sneaks in there. And so it's kind of a mixed bag. Now, what I experienced there, I would not say was malevolent. I don't think it was, evil or anything like that. And it seems like, I guess if you stack up all of those stories side by side, you would have more that are on the lighter or nicer side rather than the more malevolent. But it seems like the nastier stories are fairly nasty.
And what about the shadow figure phenomena at that house? Was that something that you were able to see firsthand?
Yeah, I did not see the shadow phenomenon at the house. I was there having Carl recount his story back in 1973 with the shadow smoke that came out of Andrea's room and rolled down through Cindy's room toward him all those years ago. He saw something similar a few years back when he was there again for filming of another television show. And Andrea had also told me stories about the shadow smoke there, basically playing between the two different rooms. Kind of seeping under the door into her room. She would tell it to go. It would seep back into the other room. So you have a lot of these interesting stories of shadow phenomena there. But no, I did not actually observe it, at least on that visit.
All right. Now, people, and I know we've spoken about this in the past, but, it's the paranormal and investigating the paranormal is always this constant evolution of thoughts and process and theories and testing. For many years, the feeling of shadow people is that it's pure evil. It's dark, malevolent forces. Where are we now on the spectrum? What do people believe? And what's the theory and most widely accepted concept regarding this realm and these beings that are making themselves known?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, Dave, because you're right. There has been that connotation for many years. And the belief that these things were all evil, they're the darkest of the dark and what have you. And yeah, there are some that are like that. There are some that are nasty, evil, and nefarious. But there's a very simplistic saying that I put out there in that, when you look at humans, some people are good, some people are bad. Same thing with shadow people. Some shadow people are good, some shadow people are bad. All the stories that I've collected over the years and my personal experiences, the majority are just rather benign. They're there, standing there, watching, observing, maybe just walking down a hall or through a wall or into a closet. And they're not actually up to anything nefarious. And people fear what they don't understand. And of course, if you're witnessing some other entity or presence in your house, that's an intrusion of your privacy. We naturally feel inclined that, there's something here that I don't want here. So, we get upset by that. But for the most part, that's not what they're doing. And I have even collected some stories of shadow entities that are more benevolent in nature. And, that's been really interesting. You start diving deeper into this research and you're discovering, okay, shadow people are not just one singular thing. There are a variety of different things, whether they, some will say, sure, okay, there are a handful out there that might be demons or demonic, but I believe what a true shadow person is an interdimensional being. Some of these are just human spirits that can't fully manifest as an apparition and only come off as a shadow. Some may be extraterrestrial in nature, and that's what I'm going to be speaking about here in a week and a half at the Laughlin UFO Mega Conference. Some may even be time travelers or the way we visualize an astral projection from our side. So there's a lot of different things that these shadows could possibly be.
Now, there seems to be a hierarchy with the shadow people phenomena as well. You're right. You've got the basic shadow figures, but then you've got ones that wear hats, very dapper shadow people, right? And then you've got red eyes. Now, obviously, the more weirder it gets, the more malevolent they seem. What's your take on this? Is this more urban legendy working its way through? Because I've seen a lot of shadow figures, but I've never seen one with glowing red eyes or a hat. I don't denounce that they exist, Maybe I just don't draw them to my attention. But what do you think of it?
Yeah, that's actually a great point. When you get into these stories, there is a lot of legend and lore that works its way into here. You even go back into ancient history and you see these legends from cultures from all over the world for thousands of years that have talked about this phenomenon, but just in a different way. They each have their own term for it. They have their own legend and lore that's been mixed into it, but at the root of it, they're all talking about this phenomenon. And yeah, when you talk about the man with the hat or the red glowing eyes, it's funny. I've been doing this research for years, and I also have never seen the man with the hat. I've collected, I don't know how many stories of these things. So they exist, and they go back years and years. And back during the 1950s, during the big UFO flap, people thought that these hat entities that we ascribe to hat-wearing shadow entities were either extraterrestrial in nature or they were the Men in Black. And so you have a variety of different things here that they could possibly be. And then the red eyes, one of my more significant cases, one that was actually demonic, was one with red eyes. But we, as the investigators, had never seen it. We were out there investigating several times. This was the one that appeared on the show The Haunted. And of course, they make it look like we had been out there to investigate once, and then we deemed it was evil, and we had Carl come out and cleanse the house. But we'd been out there investigating several months, had a number of different investigations out there, had never actually seen the thing with red eyes, but the adult daughter had seen it many, many times. It was basically appearing in her closet, terrorizing her, terrorizing the cat. Other family members had also seen this thing, and they'd been experiencing hauntings in that house for a good 20 years. And it was just progressively getting worse and worse and worse. So it was a red identity case in which we never saw the red eyes, but we had seen its effect. And when we did that cleansing, there was a bizarre moment in which Carl was doing a blessing over the girl. And as he's doing this, all of a sudden she just doubles over in pain, and like she had just got punched in the gut and falls to the floor. We picked her up. She was okay. But going back over the audio later, there was an EVP right there that said die. And then she got punched in the gut. So there was evidence of it, even though we never actually saw the red eyes.
Jeez, that's crazy. When somebody tells you this, as a skeptical inquirer, if you will, researcher, you take it for face value of what they say, but also with wondering what other influences might be playing in on them. But when you get corroborating evidence to what they're seeing and experiencing, how does that affect you as an investigator? Does it ever turn you to the point where you're like, what, maybe I don't need to get into this that much?
For myself, that really hasn't happened for me. Like when that was happening with that family, we wanted to help them because we saw how Taliesin, the girl, was spiraling downward. So we really just wanted to get out there and finish that case and really help them get that entity out of there. We have 10 years later, we have followed up with them, and everything is okay with that family to this day. So that makes me feel extremely good that we were able to help them and keep them protected all of this time, all these years later. So, we are out there doing some good.
What is a way for people that are listening, Mike? Let's talk about that, to protect somebody from these type of entities. I mean, a lot of people feel powerless by them. I've often recommended to people, go off the gut feeling. If you feel, once you get past the shock and awe of seeing something, what do you is it really fear that's left? And a lot of people tell me, no, actually they can roll over and go to sleep. So, but in protecting, what's a good way for people to start?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, this is what I tell people is that, it's your belief, what is at your core that you believe works for you. Because you could go into a location and, because that case was out in Oklahoma, we could have walked in there and, did some Native American rituals and that may not have had any effect because the family didn't have that same belief system. So you can do things. You could set up different protections. Of course, we did full cleansing of that house, and people will recommend the sage and all that. But I believe that if you truly believe in whatever technique that you're about to implement through and through, and have that conviction that this thing is going to work, then it will work for you. I think a lot of this has to do with mindset and putting forth a positive energy from yourself, and that I believe that's how you shield yourself is from your own energy, putting that out there to basically ward off some of these things.
That's really an interesting aspect of it, right? Once you protect yourself, or you feel more protected, you're kind of not leaving an open door for energy or entities to affect or influence you.
Exactly. And you had asked me earlier, about, having, the possibility of something following me home. And there have been cases in which, as I'm walking out of a building, I could feel something coming up behind me. And I just turn around, point my finger and say, no, you're not coming home with me. And to me, that just little bit right there protected me walking out the door, and I was okay.
So again, putting your foot down with the spirits, making clear lines of delineation of what's acceptable and not is fine. You're not, I think people are afraid of hurting the spirit's feelings, and sometimes they allow things to happen that normally would not be a good plan.
No, we all have boundaries, and you have to set those. And so, yeah, you have to put your foot down. Don't worry about hurting feelings. It's okay.
Well, let's do this. We have to take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk more with our guest. I want to know more about some of the creepier news stories and things that you've encountered and seen, and some of the stories people have shared with you. A Walk in the Shadows, a complete guide to shadow people. We have a link to that book, and we'll have a link to Mike's new docuseries, The Shadow Dimension, on today's program guide. Stay tuned. There's more coming your way right here on Darkness Radio. We're back. Mike Ricksecker, our guest, A Walk in the Shadows, a complete guide to shadow people, the book, the docuseries of The Shadow Dimension. That's part of what we're discussing. I'm curious, what are your thoughts, Mike, that maybe these beings are angelic, that these dark, shadowy figures are, in fact, angelic? The reason I posed this question to you was I had a strange encounter with something claiming to be an angel. Beat up, bruised up, battered up, and said, this is what angels look like, because we're constantly fighting. We're constantly battling in your favor. These beautiful beings, these creatures of light that beckon you and call you on, those are the demons. Those, and if you read the Bible, it's pretty clear cut. The fallen are beautiful beings of light. Lucifer will come to us as a being of light, right? So could these darker things be an affront to them? That's why, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, that's why we carve jack-o'-lanterns and we put up scary things. It isn't to scare people. It is to ward off evil. That's what gargoyles are for, to ward off evil. If it's ugly and menacing, it's an affront to the eyes of the fallen, because they believe that they are beyond having to look at things like this. What are your thoughts on concepts like that?
Yeah, it's absolutely a possibility, and I'm glad you brought up how we used to try to ward these things off with the jack-o'-lanterns and the gargoyles and the grotesques. That's what they were actually put into place for, was to scare off the evil entities. And yeah, there's always that possibility. One of the suggestions that I've thrown out there before is that some of these may actually be more, I didn't use the word angelic, but I used the term light beings, where these are these things that we would consider more benevolent in nature, or something that has come down here to see a soul on into the afterlife. People talk about stories at hospitals where there's somebody who's about to pass away in the bed, and they may see a light being, or they may see a shadow, and they automatically assume that because they see a shadow, it's because they're going to be taken down to the depths of hell or something like that. And it's like, well, that's not necessarily the case. I mean, there's it could just be a loved one that's come back to visit, to say their goodbyes. Or it could just be, you have to think about the physiology of our eyes. What exactly are we seeing here? We're just seeing, when we see a shadow entity, we're just seeing the occlusion of light. We're not having light reflected back into our eyes. So we don't exactly see what that is that's over there. It just comes off as a shadow to us, but we don't actually know for sure what it is. We just know that there's no light being reflected back to our eyes. So the possibility of this being some angelic being is on the table for sure.
And it's interesting you bring that up. If most cameras, when you look at a direct light source, it'll blacken as opposed to being white. So is it that's our perception because the light is so bright, we're actually getting a shadow reflection back from that? Could it be a being of light? That's an interesting element I'd never considered before.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, stare at a light bulb for a couple of minutes, and what happens?
We don't recommend that, folks.
We don't recommend it. No,
you can send your ophthalmology bills to Mike Ricksecker,
right?
Not Dave and Tim. We have no money for that shenanigans. But you're right. Yeah, and even that we get pictures taken at Mansfield Reformatory, all these flash bulbs going off, and you try to look away at all these these specks and spots in front of your eyes. Well, let's talk about some of the weirder. What are some of the most bizarre stories that you've uncovered in your research?
Yeah, there are some real doozies for sure. Probably one of the more bizarre ones was, in relation to old hag syndrome, because old hag syndrome kind of, and the idea of waking up in the middle of the night, having that feeling of sleep paralysis, and then there's either something on your chest or something in the room. All of that, that goes hand in hand with these shadow stories. And one of the more unusual ones was this woman who woke up in the middle of the night, and instead of seeing a shadow figure or an old hag or a ghoul that people report, she woke up. She had a dire wolf sitting on her chest, and she's trying to.
She had a what?
A dire wolf that was on her chest.
What is a dire wolf? I've heard of werewolves. What is a dire wolf?
I mean, this is a extremely large mythological wolf from, well, not mythological, but basically ancient wolf from long ago.
All right.
From thousands of years ago. And so this thing was on her chest. She's trying to thrash around, and husband wakes up. He looks over. He actually did not see the wolf, but what he saw were the impressions of the paw prints in her shoulders. And so he reached over to turn on the light, and the thing just suddenly disappeared and was gone. But it was bizarre. What she had, woke up to this creature on her chest, and he could not see it, but saw the impressions of the paw prints in her shoulders. Totally bizarre.
That's freaky. Did he take photographs?
They didn't have any photographs to show me. No, so it's just a story. But it's pretty crazy.
That's bizarre. So, again, here, what are we looking at? Are these different beings? Are they interdimensional? Is it time slip phenomena? I mean, there are so many different aspects to this that still lead us on. And I think that's why people like you and I and Tim are so intrigued by the paranormal. There is no one right answer, it seems.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, there is no one right answer. There's just you're taking one incident that's happened and trying to find the answer for that. But that answer isn't the only answer. There are many answers to all of this phenomena. And so you're right. Some of them are time slips. And, that absolutely fascinates me, because if there are time slips happening, then to me, time travel is possible. We just haven't figured out how to do that yet. And, I'd love to be able to figure that one out. Interdimensional beings, absolutely on the table. I've witnessed things that I believe were interdimensional in nature, and I was witnessing something from another plane of existence manifest in front of me. And that's a big section of the book too, and part of this research is the idea that some of these are actually interdimensional in nature.
All right. What are a couple more of your favorite weird stories from research? And are there any that didn't make the book?
Well, yeah, I get stories from people all the time that that just don't make the book. I mean, I just had one come in today in which the person was asking a question about they had witnessed a shadow person sitting on the back of their RV and then they disappeared. It's what do you do with that? They want to know what it is, but it's you don't have a lot of information to go on. But since we were talking about interdimensional beings, one of the more fascinating incidents that I witnessed that was really kind of interesting, became the crux for a lot of this research, was I was investigating a old restaurant called Johnny V's in Muskogee, Oklahoma, and we were just finishing up. A couple of guys were up in the bar area, a couple of others were out in the front restaurant area, and I was just doing a last photo sweep of the restaurant. I walk in through the main door to the kitchen, and there was this just this wisp of a shadow that darted across the kitchen, and you heard this slam of it into the side metal door. That it was just a flimsy little metal door that waiters and waitresses would use to carry large trays of food through, but the door itself didn't move. This was just something you could like tap your finger and you could get the thing to move, but it even though you heard the slam, it didn't move at all. And so I called out to the others, hey, did you guys hear that? And they're like, yeah, we heard that. So I described to them what had happened. They thought it was fascinating, but then there was a part of me that's like, are these guys messing with me? So, because again, we're toward the end of the investigation. I'm wondering, they throw. I asked them, did you guys throw something at the door? And they're like, no, we didn't throw anything. So I actually walked through the door. I'm looking around to the ground. No, there's nothing on the ground. They didn't throw anything. And even if they had thrown something, the door would have moved. It was, like I said, really flimsy. So, what exactly happened here with this wisp? And so, that got me to really dive in and do some thinking here. And what I believe happened is that when I first walked into that kitchen, there was something in that kitchen that was on some other plane of existence that had manifested there. And when I walked in, perhaps it saw me as a shadow, perhaps it saw me as a ghost. I'm not really sure, but I scared it. It took off running, and perhaps on its plane of existence, it blew through that door. That door opened wide and ran off into the dining room somewhere. However, on my plane of existence, because just this, the physicality of all this, that door didn't open at all. But because sound works on a different wavelength, a different frequency, I was able to actually hear that, and that's some of the philosophy that we used in the Alaska Triangle when we were talking about the missing Douglas airplane in the very first episode, in that airplane could have disappeared through some sort of portal, but sound, again, working on a different wavelength, a different frequency, they were able to hear some of that radio chatter come back through a little bit later on. So it's definitely a fascinating concept, and that's where we start getting into these interdimensional beings and the idea of portals spawned by vortices and all of that fascinating research.
Well, talk to us a little bit about the Alaskan Triangle. To some people, this is brand new information.
Yeah, the Alaska Triangle that came out last year on the Travel Channel. Absolutely, fascinating show. And I had a lot of people coming up to me there at OSR telling me that they had loved it. They really enjoyed the show, and were asking me about season 2. It's like, yes, season 2 is coming out. It's just, with COVID, it's going to be a little bit different than the first season had been. But we were up there doing a lot of different types of research. So in the show, you get you get all the crazy disappearances. They've had 16,000 people go missing up there since 1988. That's a pretty large number. Planes that just disappear into nowhere. They've never found them. Just high profile ones. Speaker of the House back in the 1970s, Hale Boggs, disappeared in one of those. They've never found the airplane. There's been several of those. You have ghost ships up there. All kinds of paranormal, supernatural activity. There's all kinds of different cryptid sightings, the UFO activity, and then for the last episode, they had me on the side of a mountain there outside of Anchorage with some dowsing rods, basically trying to see if we could find one of these telluric currents, one of the ley lines up there, which would help generate a lot of that activity. And so we hit a lot of different topics while up there. It's not just paranormal activity. It's not just cryptid. It's all of this different phenomenon that's going on up there. And basically the easiest way to relate that, of course, is to the Bermuda Triangle. There's areas like that all over the world. It's not just there in the area of Bermuda.
We've got sensitive enough equipment now, Mike, that can measure down to the smallest micron of energy shifts. What are we seeing in locations like this? Is there anything that does seem to upset the standard of what we understand to be part of regular nature that could be causing these type of phenomena?
Yeah, you do. We had some basic equipment up there for the television show. We were getting some moderate readings, but Alaska's always been an extremely volatile area. It's volcanic up there. You have all kinds of earthquakes up there. You're up there at the top of the earth, in which the atmosphere is a little thinner, and you're getting the you're getting hammered by the solar flares from the sun up there. That's why you see the aurora borealis so strongly up there, is because of those large solar flares. So you're getting a lot of different activity. They just found back in December. This is since the filming of the show and the show was aired. They just found an ancient caldera there around the Aleutians. It's just absolutely massive. So you have a lot of this volatile energy that just at the drop of the hat will all of a sudden just it'll like literally explode.
That's crazy. I hope there's more that they can find from this. Is that leading to the hollow earth theory? Is there this energy emitting once in a while that disrupts nature and is enveloping these craft or people? And could that be how things just go missing?
It could be. And one theory that I've thrown out there that that a lot of people just it kind of blows them away, I guess, is talking about that missing Douglas Skymaster from 1950. Where did it go? If it did disappear into some sort of portal, where did it actually go? Did it go to another dimension, or did it go to another point in time? And you look at and you listen to some of these legends, from the indigenous tribes up there, and they talk about the Thunderbirds, the legend of the Thunderbird, and how massive they were and how loud they were. Well, okay, let's say, for instance, that Douglas Skymaster went through a portal and went back to 500 years into the past. And you have the indigenous tribes, looking up, and they see all of a sudden a Douglas Skymaster, just barreling through the air. They have no idea what an airplane is. Well, is that where the legend of the Thunderbird comes from? Is because they witnessed something that was totally out of time and out of place for them.
Right, which also sounds like UFOs, right? I mean, in the biblical times, there are stories that sound like modern day UAPs and UFOs. But how do you explain it in a concept when there is no flying craft in the sky?
Exactly. So they just, tell the story in the context of what they know. So that actually does get it into, like you're saying there, a lot of the, really the ancient alien theory. All
right. Well, again, looking at the concept of these shadowy figures, what do you make of them being alien in nature? That's something that people have certainly bandied about for quite some time.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of similarities between the stories of shadow sightings and sightings of extraterrestrials. A lot of them, people wake up in the middle of the night and they'll either report a shadow or they'll report seeing an ET. Individual from the 1950s, Albert K. Bender, and he was heavily into the flying saucer flap back then. In fact, he founded the International Flying Saucer Bureau, and it only lasted a year. They had gone international, was huge immediately, but they only lasted a year. He folded the thing up because he was visited by 3 shadowy beings that materialized into his room. They had the hats on. They had glowing red eyes. I mean, basically everything that we would ascribe to being a hat-wearing shadow entity. But to him, these were extraterrestrials, and they told him to stop looking into all the UFO activity back then, which he did. So you have a lot of crossover here when it comes to whether it's what we would deem a shadow entity or what others would deem an extraterrestrial.
With these beings and all of the concepts bandied about, I mean, I know it's tough to say because, as you said, there's so many different possibilities of what's really being done and what's being witnessed. Where do you kind of fall on it with the concept of things more out there, like alien in nature, or maybe even cryptozoological?
Yeah, I think it's a smattering of all these different things. I do believe some are extraterrestrial in nature, whether they have traveled here interdimensionally. A superior race, one that's more evolved intellectually, would know how to what we always talk about with traversing space and time. The whole idea of bending space and time to create a wormhole, et cetera, to get across the universe. We haven't figured that out yet, but a more intelligent civilization out there probably has figured that out by now. I mean, Earth is, younger. We're 4.5 billion years old. The universe is almost 14 billion years old. There are civilizations out there that have a bigger jump on this than we do. So they've had time to develop all that. Or if it is a physical craft that has traveled here, these beings could be coming down here. And you have to kind of also think about, if we were to go to what we would consider an alien planet, what would we do? We would, drop probes. When we finally, got onto the planet, we would watch and observe, and we take in information. So, a lot of these entities that we're seeing, if they're in a physical ship up there coming down to our planet, a lot of what they could be doing at first is watching, observing, gathering information, and because they may not want to alert or alarm us, they may be wearing some sort of cloaking device, but not fully understanding our physiology and the way our eyes work. Perhaps this, cloaking device that they may be implementing doesn't quite work with our eyes, and so it comes off to us as some sort of shadow. Or some people report seeing, like a shimmer man and something that's, very translucent, but they can, like kind of see a figure there. Yeah, like the Predator. There you go.
That's weird. I love it. I don't know, and thinking about it, I don't know that there's ever sound associated with any of these beings from the shadow realm. There's visions, you see them moving. I've never heard footfalls. I've never heard them brushing against the door or the jail cell. How often does sound get reported with these beings?
Not very often. And that is a question that I get. Do these things have voices? What do their voices sound like? And people that have reported hearing their voices or having a little bit of a conversation with them, it always seems to be telepathic in nature. There's some sort of thought transference. There's nothing vocal about it. And yeah, it's also interesting how you don't usually hear footfalls with these things at all. So they're moving about very silently. And that ascribes to the idea that some of these may just be, projections either from another dimension or, some other just, physical location entirely, that they're just being projected here rather than actually, being physical on this plane of existence.
I wonder, I've been bandying this about with Tim for a while, degaussing guns, things that used to be used to help clear TVs of magnetic buildup. And, we used them in radio to clear old cassettes and reel-to-reel tapes so that they could be re-recorded over and you wouldn't be left with artifact. It would disband that magnetic connection. I'm wondering if we affect a location or a spirit that we see with a magnetic resonance like that, could we disrupt it from being seen completely?
It's certainly worth a shot. We're talking about these things all being energy. I mean, pretty much everything's energy anyway. So, could you possibly do that with a degaussing gun? I mean, it's very possible. We'd have to give it a shot, see what happens.
Of course, then we got to deal with the right to afterlifers.
Yeah,
after shooting ghosts and tearing them apart. That's the other weird thing, right? What if you are destroying them by doing that? That's the energy is held together magnetically and we disband it. Does that set a soul free? Boy, there's just so many concepts of this we still don't have an understanding for. I don't think necessarily we ever will. But it's strange. You hear these stories come out all the time, Mike, and you're certainly steeped in this. What are some of the new elements that have been, kind of shocking or surprising to you? As I dive deeper into, this idea that some of these could actually be extraterrestrials, or interdimensional beings, that's what's been really fascinating for me is just really discovering how really everything in our universe is connected. We're all made from stardust. Our physical bodies, basically all came. Go back to the Big Bang, the singularity. We all came from the same thing. So we're all actually connected together. So any of these things that we're actually interacting with, we are somehow, some way, shape, or form actually connected to. So between us and the shadow and whatever dimension that it is coming here from, we're all connected to these different things. And so diving into that realm has just it's been blowing my mind, because you start getting into quantum physics and all these other crazy scientific ideas, and it's just, there's so much to learn. There is so much more to learn about these things. So when we talk about seeing a shadow or, catching an EVP or, witnessing an apparition, I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to all of this. Are there any elements of this that scare you?
I get that question, or, have I been, scared during an investigation or anything like that? I've had some moments in which I wasn't involved in anything paranormal at the time that did creep me out. I think just when you go into investigation, you're of the mindset, I'm here to learn. I'm here to investigate. I'll go running after stuff because it's like, oh, I saw something go down the hall and I'm going to go running after it because I'm curious and I want to know. But I think it's those moments that when I'm caught off guard and I'm doing something completely different and all of a sudden something happens. I think that's the moment that is like, okay, am I actually safe in this moment, in this location? And I talk about a story in which that happened in the shadow dimension, in which I was basically talking this woman off a ledge. She had gone back to her childhood home, and it was abandoned at the time. She was sitting back there with her in her SUV, and I'd driven down there. Got out of my car, went to go talk to her in her car, and it was an extremely personal moment. But as we're talking, and there's, it's a very dark area. There's these, there's this basically forest behind the house. And I start seeing these, shadow beings, these short shadow beings start to crowd around the trees. And I'm seeing this through the side mirror. And I keep looking back and I keep looking back. And finally she notices that I've been kind of spying something. She had been involved a little bit with the paranormal as well. And she says, you see something back there, don't you? I'm like, yeah, I do. And I described to her what I had seen. And, because it was a more personal moment, I wasn't there for anything paranormal. I just was not in that frame of mind. And so everything started getting very dark, very heavy. And it was like, this is not a good situation. And finally, one of these shadows actually approached the back of the car. So I told her, and I was like, I think it's probably time we need to go. And it wasn't one of those moments in which I thought like these shadows were evil or anything like that. Right. It was just, this is not a good situation here. So,
I like that. I think it's time for us to go.
Yeah, it's time for us to go. We should get out of here. Yeah. So, I got out of her SUV. I'm kind of looking around. The shadows, the short shadow people are still back there in the trees. I'm looking around for the one that came up to the SUV. I did not see that. Start walking back to my car. And as I'm looking back toward everything, just something even more bizarre happened, in which up in the treetops, there was this white silky thing. I call it like a living spider web that was just kind of slinking its way through the treetops. And it's just like, all right, we're gone. We're out of here.
Wow. And to be surrounded by that. And there's I'm trying to remember, I know the Booth brothers covered it in one of their documentaries. There's that road where like the children's spirit shadows are seen at night, like as dusk is falling, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Something road, and I can't remember the name of it. Yeah.
Is that, not familiar with it, but yeah, I can't recall off the top of my head.
Crazy. And I'm sure listeners will send me links and stories for that.
Probably.
Again. Very cool. So the documentary series is out. It's how many parts total?
Yeah, 6 parts. 6-part docuseries. The first 4 episodes are cover the Conjuring House. The first episode is really a lot of backstory. We kind of briefly touch on the Conjuring House, and then the next 3 are boom, 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 really get into it. And then the last 2 episodes are featured in Mineral Springs Hotel in Alton, Illinois. So, but yeah, it's on. Right now, you can find it on Vimeo, Zuzu, and Quasum, and shortly to come, Tubi and Plex.
Tubi, T-U-B-I, and Plex, P-L-E-X.
Yes.
Is there a website where people can go find out more about that series?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to shadowdimension.com. We have the trailers out there. There's also a insider sneak peek, which is much more extensive. A lot of production stills. I have a little snapshot of everybody that's been involved with some information on the entire cast. So shadowdimension.com. Please go check it out.
We'll play that audio right now from the trailer. Take a listen.
There's a kind of a hallway connecting the bedrooms. Coming down that hall was something. I want to say black, but it was more like the absence of vision. Something dark. My first thought was there's a fire in the house and I'm going to smell smoke. It was somewhat rolling towards me, but formless, just darkness. As somebody had erased reality.
Thank you. I have to sit down for a minute.
You okay?
Can you take the camera from me?
Yes, certainly. What's the matter, Mike?
Something over here, I don't know.
I just think it's getting darker in here.
I woke up in the middle of the night one night, and there was this tall, dark figure standing in the corner of my room.
What is this? Who are they? I tend to think they're from another dimensional space.
I call it a gravitational distortion.
Whoa! Point right at the hole.
It's all right over here.
That's right. This is where the energy is.
I think this is kind of an opening to another reality.
So you can see all these connections that are interwoven.
I have frequently described as a portal cleverly disguised as a farmhouse.
That's the bedroom in which I had the experience when I was about 8 years old.
Amari, Aya, let's go.
It had red glowing eyes.
And that smoke came forth. Something in my face walking in here.
I think something's happening here.
Very cool, exciting stuff. Mike Ricksecker, always a great opportunity to catch up with you and talk. The updated version of A Walk in the Shadows, a complete guide to shadow people, is out and available. We have a link for it in today's show. We also have a link to his website, shadowdimension.com. You can go see that trailer you just heard and hear more about it there. Mike, thanks again for being here with us, buddy, and stay safe out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, Tim, you guys stay safe as well. Absolutely a pleasure.
All right, folks, remember tonight we've got a brand new episode of Holzer's Ghosts. You want to tune in, check out our Darkness Radio YouTube channel or any of our social media. We'll have links up for it. You can watch it live and be interactive. Producer Chris Cagle will be with us, and we also have Shane Pittman will be on tonight talking about the Ocean-Born Mary case, one of my favorite episodes from season 1. We're going to take a deep dive, talk about a lot of the behind-the-scenes stories and more, so I hope you'll check that out. For Tim Dennis, I'm Dave Schrader. Thank you for tuning into the best in Paranormal Talk Radio. Watch the live stream tonight. Listen to the podcast availability of that episode tomorrow. You've been listening to the best in Paranormal Talk Radio, and thank you for doing that. We appreciate you here on Darkness Radio.